Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Law. This is your health law. It is your legal light. And I'm Samson Ladi Anyenini. This afternoon, very disheartening. The survey, as released by the Ghana Health Service, shows that our young girls are being impregnated all over the country. As many as 13,444 girls aged 10 to 14 years have been impregnated, and it may cost them their education between 2016 and 2020. As many as 542,131 ages 15 to 19 years have also been impregnated. What protections does the law offer these people, and what punishments does the law have for those who put them in this way? This is what is engaging our minds this afternoon. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Lexus Bill, host of Drive Time on Joy 99.7 FM. Listen, you don't have to worry if you miss Drive Time or Personality Profile. It's going to be live on our podcast page. Just log on to www.myjoyonline.com/podcast. You can listen to Drive Time, Personality Profile, and any other of your favorite shows on Joy FM on that page. You don't have to miss a show at all. Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.
Welcome back. I don't know what you have been thinking when you heard the news that in the Volta region alone, as many as 6,000 plus, have been put in this way. Small girls, simply defiled. So, what protection does the law offer them, or the society offer them, and what punishment is there for the perpetrators, those who would have violated those who are children? This afternoon, we are fortunate to be joined by Musah Ahmed, who is head Ahmed Legal Consult. And this will not be his first time on the Law Show. We want to thank you so very much for always making the time to assist us in these discussions and education for our people. And also joining us is Mrs. Brigetta Osei Ochre, and she is managing partner Obing Sechi Sobojo and Co. She's also a member, Coalition for Survivors of Domestic Violence. Thank you so very much for also making the time to join us.
Thank you for having us, Samson.
Great. So let me start with Musah Ahmed. So I know that you have girls. How does this come to you?
I do. Yes, my brother. Can you hear me?
Yes. So how do you take this news?
It is disheartening, it's disgusting, and it is very sad for the nation. I wouldn't even say we should attribute the effect to the parents alone, because we are dealing with our future generation here. And if anything happens to them and it becomes a barrier, let's look beyond that. Who are going to be there for Ghana? So it is indeed sad for Ghana and not the parents alone.
Right. Brigitta, you are also a mother. So first of all, I'm touching you guys in the spots that will bring your parents, sense here before we even begin to talk about the law and the sociological issues or the cultural issues that may be involved and what ought to be done. How did you take this news?
Samson, this is very, very disheartening. Obviously, as parents, nobody wishes this for any one of their children. And to think of the fact that a child below the age of 16 could be defiled by another person, it's heartbreaking, something to say the least. And it's somewhat scary as well, because they are children. They don't, I'm sure they don't even know what they are engaging themselves in, only perhaps to even find themselves pregnant. They are not old enough to look after themselves, moreover to mother another human being. And of course, there are several medical issues associated with pregnancy at that age as well. So it's very, very disheartening, to say the least, honestly. Yeah.
So as a nation, how would you say we should begin to look at this issue from? You have already mentioned the question of defilement. Why do you say defilement? Explain to us.
Okay, so I use the word defilement because under the 1992 Constitution, there's a framework for child protection where, in reference to Section 28, D, where it specifically says that children and young persons receive special protection against exposure to physical and moral hazards. And then we go on as well to the Criminal and Other Offences Act, Act 29, which also defines what defilement is. It's also for children who are below the age of 16. So if you don't mind, Samson, I'm going to read out the Criminal and Other Offences Act 1960, Act 29.
Please do. We need the education.
Yes. Okay. So as amended by PNDC Law 102 of 1985, okay, it provides for the constitution of defilement and rape, considering that most of teenage mothers fall below the age of 16, which is the age for consent of sexual intercourse. So the age for consent for sexual intercourse is 16 under the law. And also under Section 14, it says consent is void if the person given it is under 12 years of age, or in the case of an act involving a sexual offense, 16 years, or is by reason of insanity or of immaturity or of any other permanent or temporary incapability, whether from intoxication or any other cause, unable to understand the nature or consequences of the act to which he consents to. And further, in the same act, Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, it defines defilement under Section 102 that for the purposes of this act, defilement is a natural or unnatural carnal knowledge of any child under the age of 16 years of age. Whoever naturally or unnatural carnal knowledge knows, any child under 16 years of age, whether with or without his or her consent, commits an offense and shall be liable on summary convictions imprisonment for a term not less than 7 to 25 years. So, Samson, as you can see, our laws clearly define what defilement is, and there's laid down punishment for offenders of defilement. But rather unfortunately, we don't see much prosecution in this department. Most of the cases perhaps go unreported, and the ones that are reported actually are not seen through. You would find out that some people actually even prefer to settle these matters at home, which should not be encouraged, because as citizens, we are all under a duty of care to protect children. So it's very worrisome, as I said before. I mean, there are laws backing this, and unfortunately, there are laws, but the laws are not being implemented, if I should put it that way.
Right. Musa Ahmed, what do you have to say looking at the law and what these girls are going through?
First and foremost, I'm aware of the existence of sections 101, 2, and 102 of the Criminal Offences Act and the various provisions in the Children's Act of 1998. But the question to ask ourselves is, are these laws sufficient? Are the enforcement procedures sufficient? We have bottlenecks in the laws. Section 73 of the Courts Act actually allows the court or the state to permit settlement of cases. I'm aware that those cases which can be settled, defilement is not one of them. But as my sister has alluded to the problems we have encountered, we have elders within communities. And in some cases, we even have law enforcement officers in the nature of DOFSU, encouraging parties to go and settle those cases on defilement. We have an issue there. We need to look
Maybe some police officer, but not DOFSU.
When I would mention that, because I have witnessed cases where the police themselves have encouraged victims to do that. They have, although at the tail end of it, the law was made to take its course.
Okay.
The perpetrator was taken to court. They were, he was tried and punished. But we cannot be oblivious of the fact that these things are happening, especially not in Accra, Kumasi, but in the villages. They do. If you want to collect information, you need to go down there, because places like in Accra, the education is working. People are aware. There's so much awareness amongst community members. So these things are not as high as they are in the villages. So the point I'm making is that the bottlenecks in the laws, we need to remove them. I would suggest that there has to be a law which should be compelling on all parties, the police, the parents, the school, and all other parties who, for reasons of knowledge, come to know that there has been a defilement, to report the matter to the Attorney General. There has to be a special desk at the AG's office where all these cases are reported. There ought to be a compelling mode in the police service where such cases are reported to them. They must first file a report with the Attorney General, for the Attorney General to be aware that this case is existing, let's say in Tema, let's say at Adna, let's say in Tamale, let's say in Bolga, so that the Attorney General's office can also be involved and track, and from time to time obtain further reports from the police as to the progress of those cases.
What I get you saying is that at least once a young child, a child under 16 years is pregnant, there are certain people that we will know for a fact that have knowledge.
They have knowledge. The parents are one.
Okay, the parents, the school, and you are saying that
people living within the enclave of the child.
Should it be a question of a policy to encourage, or rather a law to compel the reporting that this has happened and obviously it's a defilement?
Knowledge should be important here. You see, we all have a responsibility to report crimes. Most of the times, people don't know it is a civic duty, failing which sanctions shall apply. In this case, I have already argued that the responsibility and the effect not only relates to the parents, or the effect is not only on the parents, it's to all citizens of Ghana. We are looking at the impact as to what will happen to the future of the state, because our children constitute our future.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't get everybody involved, and we think that, oh, after all, if somebody's daughter is pregnant, it is not my business. If we begin to look at it from that angle, we are all going to suffer in future. Because we know, one, it is the women who are going to produce children to fill our societies and to fill our responsible positions in Ghana. So if we don't get involved, then we are going to have bigger challenges in future. So knowledge here means that within the circle or enclave of the child, the parents, community members, neighbors, if you like, neighbors, they should all have a responsibility to report, because crime is crime and it affects everybody. I would also advocate that the scope of the law must be expanded. From, say, 16 years, we should even expand it to 17 years. Because we know that 18 years, the person has become an adult, but is still within the teenage zone. So if you use the word teenage pregnancy, and you are not even considering the law, the scope of the law, you are making a mistake. If you just mention, oh, this is teenage pregnancy, and they go to report it to DOFSU, what can DOFSU do? Because Section 101 says that the cutoff point is 16 years. So beyond that, they can't do anything. So we need to expand the scope of the law so that it can cast in its net more than we are witnessing now.
All right.
16 years. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
So if we don't do that and we allow the law to stand as it is, community members are left off the hook. They don't report it. Parents are left off the hook. The police are left off the hook. Then we will get nothing out of the law.
Okay, so
we will get nothing out of it.
So, Brigitte, you were saying that because they are children involved, they require special care and protection from us. Do you get the sense that what Musah Ahmed is saying then explains why not even only the parents, but the community should all have a certain responsibility? What would you say to that? For 2020 only, for only 2020, you have almost, let me give the actual figure, 2,865 girls who are 10 to 14 years who have been impregnated. And then you have 107,023 who are between 15 to 19 years who have also been impregnated. This is terrible.
Yes, it is. And as my senior Musah Ahmed rightly said, this is a problem for the whole community. And like I mentioned earlier on, there are laws that are meant to protect these. If you Section 106 of the Criminal and Other Offences Act, 1960 Act 9, and also in which a child who is being defiled. If I may, Samson, I'd read that out. It says that household permitting defilement of a child, that's under Section 106, where it says owner or occupier of premises or a person acting in the management of a premises who induces or knowingly permits a child of less than 16 years to resort to or be in or on the premises and be carnally known or unnaturally carnally known commits an offense. And there's a penalty, conviction, which is not less than 7 years and not more than 25 years. So this goes to the whole neighborhood. So for instance, if there's a child in the neighborhood who gets pregnant, who is below the age of 16, automatically the parents of that child are caught under this law. Neighbors who may have known that, who see that the child is pregnant, obviously are caught under this law. Even in the child's school, the teachers who saw the child pregnant are also caught under this law, because there's a presumption that, of course, once a child under 16 years old is pregnant, of course, the child is under 16. So they've been defiled. So automatically, we've all been caught up in this web of knowing that indeed this child has been defiled and nothing has been done about it. So knowing about it and not even reporting, you are liable, under the law. So I think we need to educate the public more, so that in the event that we notice that there's a child pregnant in the society, we quickly make a report, and whoever is responsible for getting the laws, you just need to implement it. There should be more education on this.
In your mind,
speaking about education,
right? In your mind,
it all takes me.
Looking at the huge numbers that we are talking about now, the enormity of the numbers that we are talking about now, since most of them, it's just last year, for at least let's take the last year numbers. It means that some of them may not have yet, delivered yet, or they may just have delivered. Should the state take a certain concerted effort to look for these children and look at how to deal and address with their situation before we look at the future, approach? And if we had to do that, how should we go about it?
That honestly would be very, very ideal. And that would also go towards education. You would notice that in most of these communities where these children are defiled, once they are defiled and they get pregnant, majority of the decisions are left to their parents. It's actually their parents who decide whether they should prosecute the matters, whether they should report. It gets to a point that these children don't even have any say anyway, because they are even under the age of 18. They can't even say anything. It's rather unfortunate that they've gotten pregnant. So if we can start from the roots, whereby it's the parents or persons who are legal guardians to these parents, if we start off with education of these people as to, first and foremost, what to do when you find a child in this situation, where to report the matter to. There might even be issues of counseling involved, especially if the child was, I'm going to use the word rape, but of course, children under the age of 16 are defiled, they're not raped. So there has to be education. The child could be traumatized. They have to go for psychological checks. There are several things that needs to be done for that child. So if we start off with the parents, grassroots, educate them. And of course, if we can also educate them on preventions of sexual preventions, how do I put it, so that the children do not even find themselves in this position in the first place. Because if there's sex education, right, so, of course they can protect themselves, and maybe there might not be the need for the pregnancy.
You're saying those who are above 16, their situation will not be caught by defilement, for which the punishment is between 7 to 25 years. So if the person is above 16, and the figures we are working with, and these are girls in school, include up to 19. What should happen to those within that bracket? Above 16 to 19. What should happen in that regard?
Above 16 to 19, honestly, those ones are rape, simplicity. And there's a summary conviction for them. But Samson, as you also know, there has been a wide advocacy for the synchronization of the legal age, which is 18, and the age of consent for sexual activity, which is 16. Most likely it is deemed that once a child is 16, they are allowed to have sex. So automatically, if they engage in such activities and they get pregnant, they are allowed to, but they've not yet attained that age of maturity, which is 18 years old, to allow the the matter not be defilement. So basically, it's more or less the same. It's just that
no, but when you say that is rape simpliciter, if the person is 18 and above, that is where it becomes rape. But even before it becomes rape, then there must be lack of consent. Is that not so?
Of course, yes. Of course, there must be lack of consent for it to become rape, yes.
And what are you thinking, that in most of these situations, there's a possibility that there will be issues of rape?
Most likely, Samson. Honestly, having read several things in the news and even having heard some of these children who have been defiled, most of them were more or less raped without their consent. They didn't give consent to, having sexual intercourse with whatever partners they had. And then they were raped. Some of them too was the need for simple amenities like sanitary pads. Somewhere in the Volta region, there were a few girls from school who needed sanitary pads, and they slept with men for 5 cities to enable them buy sanitary pads. So there are so many social, economic circumstances that goes into this whole thing. And as a nation, we have to do something.
Let me put the same question to Musah Ahmed. Is there not a difficulty here? Those who are above 16, you were saying that even the compulsion to report should, the new law you are looking at should, include people at age 17. That is prospective. But presently, what can happen in that situation?
Unfortunately, what can happen in that situation, we cannot punish a person for an offense or for an act which did not constitute an offense under the laws of Ghana. That is what the Constitution says. So beyond Section 101, it will be difficult to punish a man for defilement of a child if the child is above 16 years. So in my opinion, we have to separate those above 16 if we don't come up with a law immediately to deal with the 17. As I said, we should expand the scope. Then we may as well now put a bar and bring in those from 1 to 16 and beyond 16 to 17. We should have a different policy to deal with them. We cannot punish them, but we need to, that is where we need education.
Yes. If I may bring this to your attention, and let's see if that will apply, because police officers who do prosecution, they watch this show, and some of them may take some lessons out of this. In the Domestic Violence Act, there is a provision about domestic violence, which is in Section 1, and it provides in 1D that behavior or conduct that in any way, 1DII, that in any way endangers the safety, health, or well-being of another person. So this could be caught, those above 16 to 19, if it is found or established that, the people have found themselves in a bit of a domestic relationship. Sexual relationship can be domestic as well. Being in a friendship, not exactly sexual, could also be a domestic relationship as defined by the law. And for that matter, those people could also be liable to face up to 6,000 Ghana cedis or 2 years, according to the law. Will that not apply?
My brother, let's always call a spade a spade. This business of using semantics as an invidious way of establishing law is not working in Ghana. This business of conduct amounting, tending to, I have seen it in the miscellaneous provisions of the Criminal Offences Act. hardly do prosecutors want to even go there. You see, the law as it is has always provided a leeway for an offender in the nature of whenever there is a doubt, it shall be resolved in favor of the accused person. How do you go to court with such a vague provision to get somebody indicted, found guilty and punished for an offense which you claim he committed, when you cannot get the offense connected with our principal law, the Criminal Offences Act? If we don't if we don't look at the Criminal Offences Law again and use amendments to make it have more impact, then, my brother, we are going to fail.
Yeah, but where the act of sex with a girl who is, 16 and above, because below will be defilement. As the two of you have explained so far.
Yes.
But above, you may not have the issue of rape where there is no consent. So if their school is going to be in jeopardy, have you not done an act that endangers the well-being of the girl, and therefore this law can be used against you as well?
It will be very difficult to enforce such a law because, as I have said, the accused person has several defenses, and the prosecution has an onerous task to prove the ingredients of such an offense beyond reasonable doubt. My brother, it will be very difficult in the absence of a clear-cut law to deal with that for any prosecutor to succeed.
Right. But the two of you have been talking the law, how it should bite. And we know that, for example, those under 16, the law is there. It says defilement. You can go to jail for 7 to 25, 27 years, 25 years. Yes, 7 to 25 years. You have mentioned the cultural issues, the social issues. Maybe a pastor will come and beg. Maybe an imam will come and beg. Maybe even a headmaster will lead to beg and say, oh, don't take this matter to the police, and so on. And even maybe some police officer may even be the one to be the intermediary. How do we scale over that?
You see, before I even go into that, let me tell you an article which I read a few days ago. I think it is written by a lecturer in the Faculty of Law of the University of Science and Technology. I don't have the subject offhand, but there is a provision that I was interested in. And it says that challenges in implementation of the law at Dofsu in Ejusu Jabin. Then it gave a profile of those cases. There are two aspects. The summary of defilement cases, I'm quoting what I read. The summary of defilement cases made in the police dockets and files recorded 9 cases for 2007, 32 cases for 2008 and 2009, 28 cases for 2010, and 23 for 2011. Although a total of 124 cases were filed during the period under review, 117 dockets were found. I hope you are listening.
Yes, sir.
And included in the analysis of this research. Then he goes on to talk about them in percentages. But then let's look at the outcome of the cases, which is more interesting to me. He says outcome was measured in terms of proportion of cases prosecuted, those withdrawn emphasis, and convictions. Then he goes to figure 2, represents the outcome of cases. A reading of the cases in the dockets revealed that many of the cases were discontinued. Very sad. Those cases were discontinued. In all, 14, representing 12%, convictions were reported for the period under review. 4.3% of the cases were pending. Then 1.7% cases were on remand. That is, the accused persons were on remand. Then 12% cases were settled at home. The point I was telling you that Dofsu has a blame also to share in this matter. He says 12.0 cases, that is percent, cases were settled at home, and 3.4 were withdrawn. 2 of the dockets on withdrawn cases contain letters of withdrawal written by the complainants, parents of the victims, stating that the matter had been settled amicably between the parties. So in these few cases, where letters were written for withdrawal of cases for settlement, details of the settlement terms were not stated. He even went on to say that 66.7% of the cases were abandoned.
So, yeah, having read this, is it a question of lack of laws? You are asking for even a law that will bring stiffer situations where there will be compulsion.
Actually, these are cases involving the cutoff point, 1 to 16 years, which were reported. And look at what happened at the law enforcement. So my point is that let us expand. We cannot expand into perpetuity. That one we all know.
All right.
But let us do a reasonable expansion. Let us move the law from 16 to 17 so that it will cast a whole net of offenders who are getting away. In most cases, because we don't have proper records of birth registration, that is another key area we should be looking at. The government, I'm aware, has done a lot to implement this Ghana card, and they have put in place measures to capture so many records of citizens. We need to go beyond that. The births and deaths registry, we should enhance the place. We need to do it more so that victims who come to make complaints can establish their age, which should be within the law, if they are between 1 to 16.
Why is that critical? I'm taking a quick break to come for that answer. Why is the question of establishing age very critical? And then Brigitta will look at it again from this point for us. The laws are there, and yet we are not getting what we need. All the influences, not helping the circumstance. That's why we have girls in the thousands who are being defiled, and it doesn't appear anything is being done. So what should be done? We'll be right back. You're welcome back, and this is The Law. This is your legal light and help law. My guests are Musah Ahmed, who is head Ahmed Legal Consult, and Mrs. Brigitta Osei Ochre, who is managing partner of being Sechi Sobojo and Co. And she's a member of the Coalition for Survivors of Domestic Violence. We're trying to bring you some education on what punishments are there and protections could be availed to these young girls who are being defiled in their thousands and putting their education and even their health in jeopardy. So in some 30 or 1 minute, Musah Ahmed, can you explain why you said the certificates and these birth and death things are central to this process?
Yeah, they are important, in my opinion, very important, because most of the perpetrators, when they commit the offense, their parents, their friends, community elders would join in an attempt to settle the matter. And when the matter is reported to the police, they go there and say that the victim is 17, the victim is 18 years. When in actual fact, the victim should be 15 years. And they know that when they do that, they take the hook off the nose of the accused person. And he's gone, he gets away with it. That is why I'm saying that we should tighten our official birth records.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Brigitta, what do you have to say as your concluding point? Importantly, what can we do? What time do we have as a nation to ensure that we don't come back in 2021 report showing that thousands of girls have been violated once again?
First of all, sex education, which is very important. We need to educate our youth on contraceptives and on sex itself. Number two, I think the government also needs to implement a sexual offenders registry where people who are caught defiling or perhaps raping people are made to lodge their information on the system, so that in the event that these people are even applying for jobs or they come and live in your communities, it's easy for you to do a quick search on the internet and know who is even your neighbor. There may be people who are neighbors to you who are perhaps on this sex offenders registry. So that's something else that the government can implement.
That's a kind of a name and
now,
shame?
Of course, with the use... Sorry?
Is that kind of a name and shame?
Not necessarily a
so.
name and shame, Samson, but it enables you to protect yourself from your... It enables you to protect yourself from your neighbors. Naming it, and most people would not want to find their names on the registry anyway, so we'll help them zip up and perhaps not do these things that they do to children under the age of 16. So the sex offenders registry, and of course, with the implementation of the GPS address system, it will be easy to locate these people and the use of the Ghana card to locate them, to find out where they are, so that we can protect the children in the communities, away from these perpetrators. That's one thing that we can do. And of course, if we can also bridge the gap between enforcement and the implementations of the laws, which would be great. And as we all know in Ghana here, once you don't have a complainant, you don't have a case. So these matters can well enough be prosecuted, but once the family members also decide to take the matters out of court, there's no case for the prosecution to prosecute.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Brigitta Osei Ochre, who is managing partner of Obing Sechi Sobojo & Co., and she's a member Coalition for Survivors of Domestic Violence, and Musah Ahmed is head, Ahmed Legal Consult. Thank you so very much for always finding time when we call upon you to assist us in these, our legal clinics. This has been The Law. It's your legal light and your help law. I'm Samson Ladi Anyenini. Join us again next week.